I'll call this meeting to order. Good evening. My name is Luis Perez-Bedia. I serve as chair of the Historic Districts Commission in Concord. Welcome to the August 18, 2022 meeting of the Town of Concord Historic Districts Commission. The commission will review 2 continuances and 4 new applications this evening, and at the end, we'll conduct other business. We are conducting this meeting as a hybrid session in accordance with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Order, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. The public can attend this meeting in person and may access the meeting through both telephone and video conferencing. Members of the public will have an opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on applications and discussions following the petitioner's presentation and questions from the commission. To do so, please raise your hand and you will be called to speak. Those attending remotely, please use the raise your hand function in the participant function of the Zoom meeting. If you're calling in and cannot use the platform, you may raise your hand by dialing *9. Our host will mute microphones of those not speaking to preserve bandwidth and may need to turn off video except for the commissioners, the host, and the current applicant. I will call on each commissioner for comments on an application and then open the meeting for public comment. Once there are no more public comments, I will ask for a motion from the commission to continue, to approve with conditions, or to reject. A second, and then conduct a roll call vote. Once the commission has acted on the application, the applicant is free to leave the meeting. I will do now a roll call of the members of the commission. Is Kate here? Dennis Fiore?
Here.
Abigail Flanagan?
Here.
Catherine Mast? Henry Moss?
Here.
Peter Nobley?
Here.
Melinda Shumway? Paul Ware? And I'm here. So voting members will be the 3 commissioners present, Abigail Flanagan, Peter Nobley, and myself. And then there are only 5 of us, yeah. And then all commissioners, Dennis Fiore and Henry Moss. So we all be voting. Okay, the first application, it's the continued public hearing of Bank of America. Are we here? Are they here?
I think they've moved to continuous.
September. Yeah.
Okay.
Can I make that motion? I'll move that.
Yes, please. I ask for a motion to continue the application of.
Why don't I'll make a motion. We continue the application of 52 Main Street in the Main Street District to the 15th of September meeting.
A second.
Second.
Dennis? You're muted.
Dennis is an aye.
Aye. Sorry.
Abigail?
Aye.
Henry?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. So we'll see this application in a subsequent meeting. So the next application, which I'm pleased to welcome the Concord Colonial, 48 Monument Square, North Bridge, to construct new patio, brick terrace, covered decks with associated landscaping, and to install a new door and lighting. We have met with you a few times before, and I think that most commissioners are familiar with the application. So if you could quickly review the project and then say what has changed from the last time that you were here some time ago. I think it was in February or March.
Right.
You want to go ahead?
Okay, yeah, sure.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it. We've got 16, 17 drawings tonight, and I may have to bounce around a little bit to tell everybody what we're doing. So bear with me a little bit. We have a lot of details. I want to thank the Colonial Inn for allowing us, they've given us the direction to go have at it. And we've got three renderings and a lot of other details. We've taken into consideration the good comments that the board made last time. And I think that we've accepted almost all of those. But we have one little addition that we want to plug in for the history of the inn, which I'll point out. And I also want to mention too that, you know, we have a lot of drawings and there's a presentation, whatever, but these are based on working drawings. I don't want to come back every detail, and we're talking about inches here. Every detail that we've done, we have working drawings on, so I know it'll work. I don't plan on coming back in 6 months and say, gosh, the detail didn't work out.
Could you state your name too?
Yeah, I'm Charlie Rolando, representing Domus Architects. So can all the members see these boards or they're on?
No, we will have to share the screen. One moment.
Okay.
Thanks, Haley.
All right, can everybody see that?
Yep.
Yeah, I think what I'm going to do is start off with a different rendering. If you go back.
Okay, this was the new rendering that we received. One moment. Is this the one that you're referring to?
Oh, that's the old scheme. That's, you know, the May scheme.
I think it's what you had up, Haley, that
Yeah,
final,
this was this.
It's just a different
there's
page. I think.
17,
Yeah, that's
there's
old.
17 drawings in that,
Oh, okay, understood.
Yeah.
Apologies, it's taking its time.
Who's stepping on the cord?
You did, you said, right?
See. Oh, okay, it'll allow me. Oh, no, that is not the one. There we go.
That's the one.
Haley, maybe you can remove the menu that it's on the left side of the screen that has each individual slide, so we can see a little more of the. No, not that menu, the other one, the opposite side. The menu of the
Not
PDF
sure.
file.
It's not allowing me to do that.
Okay, then forget it. Just keep going. Yeah. Yeah, that's an option. That's good. Excellent.
Well, we can start with that. I think one of the biggest comments that we had before were the fact that the roof pitches were not flat, they were pitched. And what we've done is we've produced two Photoshop renderings, which you've got three there. But what we've done is if I start with the old portion of the inn, the overhang is, 8 to 10 feet deep, and it's a flat roof, but it pitches up so that at the edge of the gutter to where it meets the inn is about 1.5 inches, 1 3/8 inches. So what we've done is, and if you take a look at well, I don't want you to change it, Aaron, but if you look at the rendering, you'll see that that gutter line goes straight. It's amazing. It goes straight almost, 1/2 inch from one end of the building to the other. What we've done is we've taken and we're adding new wood gutters. And that's about a 6 inch and a 10 inch beam below that. And then they're all flat roofs in front of the handicap entrance and in the front of the former hair salon. And we've changed the thickness of that roof to about 6.5 inches, and it's not flat. And I can show you in a section, and when we get to that. And it comes up at an angle, and again, it's from the gutter to where it hits the building. It's 1 3/8 inches, 1.5 inches. It's with finite details. Several of the board members raised a really great point where that the pilaster at the right-hand side, there was a comment that, you want to move it back. You wanted to preserve that pilaster. And you didn't want to interrupt the detail on that pilaster. So what we did is we've run that 6.5 inch roof up, and it actually intersects, and it keeps the really nice detail on that pilaster on the upper portion and below that, and that detail, and I'll show you more in the working drawings. It slips right in, and it just neatly slips into that area, and the roof goes to the edge, the pilaster is preserved, and the column is preserved in the center line of that pilaster. That, I think, was probably one of the best points that the board made, which we've done and we've corrected. Moving over to the right, staying on that building, we've removed the column to the left that was in front of the window, which is this column. We have one column at the end there, which is a square 12 inch by 12 inch painted column, simple base, no cap, done away with the caps. Wood gutter painted, everything's white. And then moving over to the next building, again, the gutter is the same. I like symmetry. So I put 2 columns, 6 inch by 6 inch columns, simple base, no column cap, those are gone. And they're right in front of the door. And, the main end, the 2 columns are right in front of that front door. And the handicap, the 2 big columns are right in front of the main door. The other thing, and then moving on to the former salon, we're going to keep the big window, that stays the same, siding stays the same. The door was, too fussy, I think was the comment. So we're going to keep that existing door as is. We're not going to change that at all, as we had back in May. We're adding another window to the left, which will be the same. We'll probably have to make it so that the jamb and everything, the wood, everything is absolutely identical to the existing. And these 2 columns, are right centered on the door. And I think I like symmetry, and I think that works out fairly well. If we take a look at, here's another drawing that shows the existing conditions, not a Photoshop drawing, if you might want to show that.
Which, okay, good.
Yeah, fine. Yeah, that's the existing drawing, existing conditions that are there. And you can see we wanted to take in the fact that there's, the driveway in the former cottage, the new art gallery to the right. So that's an 1/8 inch scale. You can see how that evolves. That's as is. And then the next drawing should indicate an 1/8 inch, with the proposed. If you couldn't quickly show that, and then we can move on to the 1/4 inch drawing. Yeah, right. Yeah, that's an 1/8 inch scale drawing as we're proposing it, as I've just discussed with the rendering above that. And if you go to the next drawing, which I think is the 1/4 inch drawing of the elevation, there we go. You can see that the roof line, the gutter line is doggone horizontal almost all the way across, from left to right, from the old inn to the handicap entrance, all the way to the hair salon. That line is almost perfectly level. It's amazing how that worked out. And you can see on the right hand, you can see the columns that have been removed, the pilaster on the right of the handicap entrance building. You see the column in front of that, and then the 2 columns in front of the door in front of the hair salon. One thing that I want to point out while we're getting to it, and this is a good drawing here on this particular rendering, you'll see we found an old photograph of the inn. And there aren't many around. And over the handicapped entrance, there was this nice small railing. It's only 18 inches. It wasn't a means of egress. And I wanted to duplicate that. Because, you know, we all like history of the inn, wants to, you know, keep it coming back. I think it was, you haven't seen this before, but this is our attempt to add a little bit more history to that. You know, it's simple, it's hem fir. There's a 4x6 railing on top. There are all kinds of details of that. And then we're taking the little flutes that are below that and scooting it up so that the 4x4 inch posts support that. Again, it'll be stained and for stained white. This is a good drawing because if you take a look at the right-hand side, you will see the detail where the roof structure, the 6.5-inch roof structure, goes all the way to the edge of the building. It skips, it preserves the nice detail above and below. And I think that worked out pretty well. So there's a detail of that. There are other details. There are kind of multiple details with that. What do you have next on your drawing? Okay, yeah, briefly, that's the existing, it's there now. That's the existing planting plan and the existing site survey plan. We have later on, you'll see, you know, we have a proposed landscape plan, but this just shows on the right, there's a fabulous clump dogwood tree. There's a couple of azaleas, a real big azalea, and it's a big perennial bed. So you'll see later on, you know, our proposed landscape plan. So maybe, I think if you keep skipping, if you keep moving the drawings, then I probably can respond better. Yeah, okay, there's, you know, a colored rendering of what is there now. You know, the deck, the red brick, the handicapped brick out to the right, to the common driveway. And then the next drawing. That's a working drawing of that. We can go over that. I think the color drawing is, you can go back to that if you want, but that's just the working drawing of that. So if we go on to the next drawing. No, need
Did
to
you want
move.
me?
Yeah,
Move
just keep
to the next
scrolling
one?
down.
Keep scrolling down. Yeah, there you go. Okay, that's
Okay.
thank you. That's a floor plan. Yeah, this is even better. Keep this color drawing, not the working drawing. Working drawing has too much detail. But again, this is a combination of the proposed site plan, you know, the covered area and the proposed planting plan. So you'll see the what we've done is in front of the salon. That deck comes out 9.5, 10 feet. You know, the two columns in front of the door, the column to the right, and to the left, and to either side of the handicapped entrance. That's the covered roof that comes over there. So that new concrete deck, which is in front of the hair salon, is really all, it's pretty level. You know, there's maybe a 1/2 inch difference between the existing handicap entrance and the new. There's no step. The handicap entrance remains in place. We're taking the existing brick on the handicap ramp, which goes from the driveway, common driveway to the right up, and we're moving that. And we're taking that perennial bed and we're putting it on either side of the perennial bed. It's pretty nice and pretty fast. So we're moving that just on either side of that relocated handicap entrance. We're taking the clump dogwood, which is pretty. It's right now, it's probably 10 feet max out. It'll probably go 14, 16 feet. Very interesting tree. So we're moving that right to that corner. I don't know if you can see it or not, but it's the corner of the handicap ramp and the walkway out to Monument Street. There's lawn to the right, no seating. The other thing that we were showing, and we don't show on the renderings, is that which we show on the details, which we'll get into in a bit, is the existing inn up until the handicap entrance has planters which are resting on the ground, and they're really great elements. So the inn does a great job of planting that area, and they actually act as a barrier, which we will need to meet code. And we're doing that in front of the hair salon area. So we're adding that. The renderings don't show that because you couldn't see what was going on, more important, but we will be adding those. Trees, just finish up here. We're taking this existing azalea that's there, we're moving that to the end of the new deck, and we're relocating another azalea right behind it. And there's 2 or 3 azaleas that are there now in front of the window, really good sized trees. And the third one we're putting up north of the screen. You don't see it, but okay, maybe we can move on. This is just a working drawing of we can probably skip this. It's a working drawing of the foundation of the deck itself, of the columns. You know, I think we can, unless somebody has any questions later on. It's a working drawing. So if we slip to the next drawing, then that's a framing drawing, a roof plan. Again, it's details. I might mention that it was brought up by one of the board members that at the handicap entrance, they wanted to shorten the amount of, we had it coming back 2 feet from the entrance to the new roof. We've moved it up so it's only a foot. I think he felt that was a better detail on that. And, you know, the bottom drawing is just a framing drawing for the contractor. So we can move on. Oh, great. This is every conceivable drawing that we have here. A lot of details. You know, in the upper left-hand corner is a blow up of what we're doing, which I've already explained, with the new roof and the column and the thickness and the preservation of that pilaster. The door, that elevation to the right of the 2 pictures, shows the existing front entrance of the handicap, and it shows that new rail. And so we're taking the spindles and we're just running up from those neat curved knobs and then running them up. So that's how that looks. It does not, if you looked at the drawing directly below that, that railing does not connect whatsoever to the building. It lets, you know, the building and the detail and the shingle slide by. And we're not doing anything, everything else is preserved. The drawing to the left, both drawings to the left will show you how that the roof is sloped. It's not flat like in front of the main building. It's sloped 6.5 some odd inches. It sneaks in, you know, neatly, worked out pretty well. And the drawing to the left shows one of the planters. Both drawings show the planter, you know, the beam, the wood gutters. We're doing away with the aluminum. We've got wood gutters now. And that worked out, you know, I think we're all pretty pleased with how that came out. So next drawing. Okay, this is the side elevation of the former hair salon. It's just sort of on the lower right-hand side. You'll see where, you know, before that roof, the new roof scooted way up. Now it's just a flat new roof. It's the same pitch. It's, you know, 1 3/8 difference from the edge of the gutter to where it impacts the roof. We're putting in a new asphalt roof on, you know, over that, because I think we'll probably need it. And the side elevation, the window remains the same, not touching that at all. The shingles remain the same. And then you'll see the new 6" by 6" column, the beam. On the left hand, you'll see the planter that's there. That's a working drawing. The beam, everything is white. That shows a good detail of the column base. Again, that pops up maybe 8 or 10 inches. It's very similar to the art gallery next door. There's no column cap, which people, had an issue with. We're trying to simplify that. And in reality, our neighbors are coming down the street. If you look at the lower right-hand corner, that big azalea that we're moving, you won't see anybody on the deck from our neighbors next door. And there's another azalea that's right in front of the window, and you won't be able to see in that. So, I mean, it's pretty well preserved. So you move on to the next one. We're coming to the end. Oh, good. Our lighting plan. Comments were made about the lighting. They did a previous plan. We had that chandelier, which, the colored photograph is a chandelier, which is over the entrance to the handicap. And we had them sort of everywhere. And people, and I like the idea. People thought the board thought that it was too much of a good thing, perhaps. And so can we simplify it? So we're doing a simple, recessed light, with the appropriate, warm bulb on a rheostat. We're adding that, it's flush. So I think that's a use. It's very similar to what's over next door at the, if you want to see it in person, it's pretty similar to the one that's next door at the art gallery. And then we're adding heaters. The heaters are hung below the beam, or behind the beam rather. And so from the street, you don't see the heaters, like you don't see the heaters during the, for the main portion of the inn. And I think that's all.
All right, are you sure?
I don't know. Can you give me one more? Oh, that's good.
Okay.
Yes.
Before I ask the commissioners for comments, I just wanted to ask you whether you are aware of the observations that part of the building rehabilitation should incorporate the concept of reversibility described on the Secretary of Interior's guidelines for the treatment of historic structures, which our town planner was kind to point to us. I don't know if they have been aware of this matter.
No, sorry.
Okay. There's a guideline by the Secretary of the Interior's guidelines for the treatment of historic structures. And the relevant passages are: new additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction shall not destroy historic materials that characterize the property. The new work shall be differentiated from the old and shall be compatible with the massing, size, scale, and architectural features to protect the historic integrity of the property and its environment. New additions and adjacent or related new construction shall be undertaken in such a manner that if removed in the future, the essential form and integrity of the historic property and its environment would be unimpaired. I think that my personal opinion is that this will not be an issue in this application, but I am going to ask my fellow commissioners to review these notes that have been made and to cast their comments with some of these considerations. And then I'm going to ask Abigail to start the comments.
So I just had a few questions. So the renderings, the 3D renderings that you have don't include the current landscape, but those, I just want to clarify, those two trees are staying, correct?
Yes, good point. For clarity, we removed all the trees, the
Okay.
flags, the Christmas tree decorations.
Okay. But those are.
So that we
those
can
are
see the
needed.
building.
Okay,
We are not chopping them down.
okay. How many, so the heaters are somewhat visible currently. How many new heaters are being installed?
Um, I can tell you, to the former hair salon, you know, to the left of the column, 2 columns of the entrance, there's one there, and there are 2 in front of the big window. And we'll make sure that they're the appropriate size. You know, I agree that I think the ones that are there now are a little big, a little old.
Yeah,
We'll probably update that so they cannot be seen from the street. And the same goes with the either side of the.
Yeah. Are there any other mechanicals, new vents, changes in configurations, anything else we need to be aware of?
No, we're not, you know, there's no ventilation, there's no heat. We probably will have a rate of rise, a smoke detector, but a rate of rise,
Mhm.
fire protection.
Yeah.
We'll probably add that to that. I'm sure the fire department would probably want that, even though that's outdoors.
Yeah,
We show that on the drawings.
okay,
Everything is on a rheostat. We don't have any speakers.
okay. Okay, so there's no, yeah, so no substantial additional new mechanicals.
Correct.
I mean, I think the simplification of the design is an improvement. I'm not sure. Kind of 2 minds about adding the additional railing over the accessible entrance, whether, you know, it's necessary or whether it's a nice touch. I'm kind of agnostic on that. But I think the simplification of the design and the retention of the plaster on the corner is an improvement.
Thank you.
Other than that, I don't have strong opinions about the appropriateness, but other commissioners might. So I'll pass it back to the chair.
Thank you, Abby. Dennis.
I spent some time walking around there today. Got the lay of the land again. This is a very basic question, and I know we touched on this early on, but we didn't pursue this, and that is, why are you doing this? You have umbrellas there now. You have umbrellas out on the street. Why do you need this if you have umbrellas? Could you just explain that to me?
I'll answer that. Sure. I mean, the patio space is obviously a very attractive place for both visitors to Concord and residents of Concord. And as the operator, in a climate where it does rain, people make the mad dash, not on a regular basis, but every time it rains, it disrupts their dinner. And the seats that are on the covered patio are the most coveted, because people know who sit there, won't have their lunch or dinner interrupted. Just today, it didn't rain, but clouds rolled in. It looked like it might rain, even though it wasn't forecasted. And that happens quite a bit. So we're looking to obviously improve our business. I'm not going to be selfish in saying it's better for a business model to not have rain pour on your lunch. But it also is better for the tourists and the residents.
So you're saying that, I'm a little confused here. So does everybody abandon their tables if they have an umbrella over them if it rains out on the
Basically,
terrace?
they want to run inside and they expect us to magically have other seats for them. So yes, I mean, essentially, if it rains, they don't want to continue sitting outside. They want to move in, and that's not necessarily an option to move in. So the covered side of the patio, that's not an option. I mean, that's not the problem. So we'd like to replicate that on the other side. So guests could sit out there in the rain. Umbrellas, they may shelter. At least our umbrellas, they shelter sun, but they're not waterproof. Rain still builds on them and then comes through them ultimately. So they don't sit out there in the rain.
I think also too, just to add, I think there's a factor of warmth. And during the shoulder seasons, we like to have heating, not the heat sits there now, but the heat that comes down. So there's this shelter, this roof, the rain comes out, but it's warmer. And that, to me, having dined in numerous outdoor establishments, you know, the idea of having something covered that's heated is a big plus.
So you want to, and how many tables will this, just refresh my, I'm going through this, has been a few sessions here. And you'll have 4 tables where you currently have umbrellas, and then you'll have some more in front of the salon, is that it?
The only new tables, because in what we're calling the handicap entrance, you know, that currently, you know, has tables with umbrellas. So the only place that there's new seating or expanded seating would be in front of the salon itself. And is there maybe 4 or 5 tables would go on that? That's not a very large expansion.
So
I'm
four
not
and
sure if it
four-
shows.
I think we don't show it, but you know, we've done, you know, layouts, tables, you know, which is apt to change, a circular table, a square table. But, you know, you're probably adding a maximum amount of 4 tables, 1 on the left-hand side of the entrance and then 3 to the right.
And potentially if there's a, you know, a deuce, you know, maybe it's we got to lay it out and see how it lays out. But again, we can't put anything in front of the door area. So it's just in front of the 2 window areas where we put tables.
So basically what you're saying is that that you're dining, the people who dine there really need to be under your cover because the umbrellas do not protect them from rain.
That is correct.
Right. I think your design is much better than I've seen. I think it's very clean, and I appreciate the work you've done on it. And maybe Henry can comment more on this, but I'm still confused about where the pilasters meet. It seems like on the right side of the new covering in the center building that it still covers the pilaster on the side from what I saw in the drawing. So I'll wait till Henry comments on it, but it doesn't seem like it's meeting that need. On the other side, it seems like you've removed the pilaster below from what I see in the drawing.
I'm sorry.
I'm just confused on that.
Yeah, the pilaster does not exist. It used to be a doorway, and the doorway's gone, it's been filled in, and the pilaster was never replaced, if it even existed. So there's none to the left.
Right.
And the pilaster, you know, as I showed you in the detail, and go back to that, is preserved.
But you're still crossing it, right? You're still going over the pilaster on the right side.
Yes, we're carefully intersecting. We're not touching any of the wonderful little detail, top and bottom. That 6-inch roof goes to the edge and it misses the detail.
But I thought that was Henry's comment, that can't you just pull it back so it doesn't hit the pilaster? It would look much better that way if we're done that way. Anyway, I will not go into that because I'm sure Henry will, and maybe you correct me in my approach to this.
I think if I can just continue a comment, we looked at that. We heard what you were talking about the last time, and to have that roof not go to the corner, be, you know, 2 feet, 2.5 feet to the left. The column then goes to the left in front of the window. You know, I think you're just complicating things, and, you know, aesthetically, you know, in my opinion, it's not the right thing to do. We're proposing what we feel is the correct thing.
And then in terms of the new landscaping plan, I'm comparing the current plan for your bricked patios with the new one. And there were comments made about there's a mix of patios now that are brick and I guess crushed stone. That's all new. What you're proposing is pretty new in terms of the space recovering there in the front.
Well, that's there, and we're not touching that at all, other than, you know, moving the handicap. So what is there in front of the handicap entrance building, that stays. We're not touching that. That's there. That's brick. It's trees. There's no stone, brick and grass and plants.
Great. I don't have any further questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Dennis. Henry.
Just to start with the landscape questions, to follow on a bit from Dennis, is there a reason why that lawn area, which is at the corner of your site, why you are not paving that and using that for seating?
In front of the salon.
In front of us, we don't, we've talked about that,
No,
and
no, I
we
mean-
just, we want to keep the lawn.
Yeah, just to keep more green space. Now, our ultimate goal is to get covered space that would protect people from the rain. And if I, don't want to really go out in the lawn with more umbrellas or anything out there. So no, so we are not looking to expand onto the grass area. We want to keep that as a green grass.
I'll leave the landscape to you. I was just trying to get you a few more seats
Tables.
during a drought.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have, I will echo the comments that Domus and Colonial Inn have listened carefully to most of the individual items that we have raised. I have no argument against what's happening in front of the hair salon. Although I think that your frontage would look better there if you had one more column somewhere in there so that you don't have suddenly a very long span without any kind of explanation other than steel. That's a small item. The difficulty I've had all along, and my guess is you've sensed this from the start, is this is a very important historic resource. This is a house where the family of Thoreau lived when he was in college at Harvard. At the end of his life, and incidentally, it contains the oldest house on that property, dating from 1690. The house that we have seen at the end of Monument Square, which was so well represented in your historic photographs and your renderings, it's a house. And it was run as a boarding house by Thoreau's aunt. In 1860, when Thoreau was dying, the house was redone as a facade, but it still looked like a house. That's 160 years ago. For 160 years plus, we have had at the end of Monument Street a 5-bay house with an interesting and unique vestibule. My point having to do with reversibility, and I did not discuss this with Ann Clifford or anyone else, is that this is a permanent alteration on a property that I think violates its historic integrity and the perception of the building in relation to the town of Concord in and around Monument Square. I understand that you would like to have people sitting out there during bad weather. In the very first instant, the first presentation, Peter Nobile and others amongst us said, do what you need in front of the hair salon, but stick with umbrellas in front of the house. Leave the house as an integral piece of historic Concord. I understand that you have set the roof of the new porch back a foot from the face of the vestibule. I understand that you're concerned about the detail at the pilaster, but it's not those details that bring me out in such an unsupportive way. It's that this is a porch that's being framed back into a 160-year-old house. It'll be there for a long time. It's not particularly relevant to anything that was there before. And I think it is a disfigurement. So I support what you're doing at the hair salon. I have no arguments about anything you're doing, and I think you could be even more aggressive in relation to the landscape. I have no qualms about the quality of the details for construction that Domus will produce, but I would not build a permanent porch in front of this house.
You have any other comments, Henry?
No,
Just that.
Thank you very much. Peter?
Well, I don't want to take up any more time here. I think Henry's kind of put the point I was going to make on the table. I think generally what you're doing is great. You really have listened to us. I do think that even this scheme does show that it's really difficult to not change the character of that structure with any kind of roof. Now, the reality is this is where my colleague Luis years ago would probably make some argument a la Louvre in Paris, where, you know, something that was very contemporary, a glass roof with something that was so intentionally contrasted that looked like it was just sort of a little piece added that would let the house read might work. But the renderings betray a little bit because it puts the bottom of the house into shadow. I struggle with that too. I agree with my fellow commissioners. I think the landscape work is terrific. I think what's happening in front of the right-hand side is fine. I even think the little railings on top of the portico are sort of inoffensive and will go away. It's just that roof is really hard to sort of accept. So I'm struggling with that too. That's
Thank
about
you,
all I
Peter.
have.
Sorry.
You bet.
Thank you, Peter. Well, I have nothing to add except to echo the comments of my fellow commissioners. We'll open for public comments. Any in the? Okay.
I have a comment. I didn't hear anybody on the remote though. May I?
You want to make a comment?
Yes, please.
Please go ahead, identify yourself, and you are welcome to make your comment.
My name is Gregor McGregor. I live at 70 Williams Road. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, the things I'm about to say are from me personally, but in my professional work, I'm familiar with New England historic inns. I have had the pleasure of eating and staying or visiting or knowing the people who are running and being present in the last few months at the Public House and the some inns in New Hampshire, including Jaffrey, the Red Lion, and the other Red Lion as well in Cohasset, which dates to, I believe, 1604. I followed the proceedings and I've listened to the prior meetings, and I've looked at all of the new drawings you have that show the work that's been done, and I echo compliments that you all gave to the team for listening to you and integrating, as I heard it, all but one of the changes, recommendations, requests, concerns, and issues that you voiced before. I'm also impressed with the command of details that you officials and also the team has. What I conclude is that this project and this board has made this project better. And I think it now meets your criteria, both your objective and your subjective criteria, as well as the guidelines the chair mentioned at the beginning, which I'm familiar with. Let me explain why. If I could ask our esteemed new planner to bring up that first rendering.
Oh, I'm the esteemed new planner.
Hi.
She's the assistant.
I would like to point the members to the first item that Mr. Rolando used to
Can
illustrate.
highly put that in the screen.
So can we go back to
Yep.
illustration number 1? I thought you were in charge of that.
Oh, no, I'm not.
She's above that.
No, it's above me.
So while we're waiting for that to pop up, I'll say that I support this project. I support it strongly. I think it's a welcome addition to the architectural treatment of Monument Square. I think it's a welcome addition to the streetscape and enhances the pedestrian access to and traversing of that part of Monument Square. I actually think it's a brilliant use of essentially a curved building to fit a curved frontage. I think that it's the business explanation for making better shelter for guests who are enjoying full meals, and this and that, and meeting friends and having business meetings and the like is valid. And I think you ought to entertain that fully and welcome that from such an important institution as essentially a trustee who owns one of the important historic buildings in New England. This is a responsible trustee type relationship with huge familiarity with running top quality inns and done right. Now, so I'll draw your attention, starting at the left of the building. I see that the part of the building that's closest to the street is not massive. It's not overly tall. It's not massively wide. And it quickly steps back to the main part of the old building with those windows. And that the roof line is very harmonious with the house, and then drops down and back because of the curved nature of the use of the site to the salon. I think what Mr. Rolando, I think called the porch roof, does either by accident or design, Mr. Rolando, nicely pick up that horizontal line on all parts of this building, all the way down to the end. In that respect, I actually think this is an improvement on the historic nature of this structure. I think it's now integrated. I think it's now a single whole anchoring this part of Monument Square. Also, I like the way the chimneys are not overwhelming, but rather actually enhance the view of the sky and break up the look of the roof. I like the way the roof slopes, and I have no trouble at all with any of the details that the team has explained. I like the fact that the main entrance has been shrunk in ways that the board wanted, and that it's no longer just a collection of pilings across the front of the building. I think the outdoor seating, the availability of it for formal and informal use by people, customers or others, the shoulder seasons, as you say, you mean the fall and the spring, when there can be inclement weather or it's cooler. Mm-hmm. And it makes sense to have some degree of sheltering psychologically or physically for guests. By the way, this is what New England inns want or wish they had because of a porch on the front or around the sides. Many of them are expanding seating for meals outside, or I say semi-outside, because they have screened porches, and they're getting permits to do more than screen them, but to close them in or have windows that are temporary that can be brought in the shoulder season. This is a lot less than that. This is not building a porch the whole length and all the way around the backside and having it winterized. This is a modest improvement on an historic site, which I think is being used better now by this new approach. So in conclusion, I would say this is both beautiful and functional. It makes sense. I think you can work out further details after approval. And I believe that after all the time and effort spent on this project, that it's been massaged enough, and it should be approved, I hope unanimously. Thank you.
Thanks very much for your comments. Are there any public comments either from the room or from the people attending by Zoom? Okay, I wanted to ask a question to the applicant. I think that members of the commission have made very compelling observations. And that doesn't mean that I agree or disagree with them, but I think that there are issues that have been brought up in terms of preserving the structure of the original house as it was. And and I appreciate the comments from the public presenting the different point of views on that subject. Now, the question is whether you want to address that in any way for the purpose of saying that you're going to leave it exactly as it is, or that you consider options, or that you want to make a change. And if that was the case, then I would suggest to the members of the commission that they indicate that we should continue this application. On the other hand, I also am the opinion that we have discussed this very thoroughly and that the project has changed substantially following recommendations from the commission. So I would not be opposed personally as a single member to having a vote on it. So I would ask you what would be your preference, whether you want to continue the application probably for the next meeting, keeping in mind that I don't think that the application it's going to fail or anything of that sort. I think that very valid points have been raised, and that it would be beneficial to say that those points were addressed by the applicant, and that the applicant came to the conclusion that the preferred pathway was going to be one or the other. But if we can record that would be a positive contribution to the project. On the other hand, you have done an outstanding job, and I don't see any reason why in any other circumstances this project would not have a favorable perception. So I put it up to you.
I think we have to go for a vote.
Okay. All right. So
Can I please, sorry, can I just ask a little, sorry, and I don't want to beat this horse to death, but I wanted to have just a little more discussion just among us. And really, maybe Henry, I'm addressing a question to you. I'm looking at the historic photographs, and I recognize the dilemma of trying to preserve the original mass of the house. And I think we face this on a number of projects. The reality is these buildings have changed over time. I'm looking especially at that entrance in the corner, you know, that used to be a fairly dramatic sort of event on that facade. That's gone. The building used to turn the corner. I guess I'm really, the more I think about this and the issue of reversibility, I'm a little bit on the fence about whether or not this really is so detrimental to the facade of the building that it's, you know, not acceptable. I do think the applicant has listened to us and essentially tried to thin the thing down to a knife edge. So I guess I'd like to just hear a little bit more about how you would define, you know, a sort of permanent marring of this facade as opposed to what they're doing here. Do you know what I'm saying?
If I may ask Peter, are you
Yes.
asking that question to the applicant or asking that
No, I'm
question
asking Henry. I'm
to
asking
Henry?
Henry.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe Henry wants to answer the question from Peter.
Do you know what I'm saying, Henry?
I do, and I understand the reference to the Louvre and IMP's pyramid in front of it. This is not like that. This is, they're trying to make this relatively recessive. And I think that they followed the design team from Domus has followed a number of the cues we suggest. I just think that seeing it as a house, as a 5-bay house, uninterrupted, coming from the eave to the ground, that's been there for 160 years, is a historic continuity which is valid and valuable. And I understand there may be people who don't care. And my statement was that I do. And the very earliest presentation that Domus made, you were talking about building something more extensive in glass and steel, perhaps in front of the hair salon. I thought that was that could be done in a way that wouldn't provide a continuum of cover for serving staff and so forth. But I thought that that was an area that could have been studied. In terms of reversibility, if the new element were somehow seen to be supported, not by nailing it into the existing facades wherever it happened to hit them, but had its own structure and stood apart, then I could see that there'd be some argument in terms of reversibility, even though it might be very substantially constructed. So those are the biases that I bring to this discussion. And as you can hear, they're heartfelt.
Okay, thank you. No, that was helpful to me to hear the context.
Can I throw out a question to the board?
Sure.
I'm Michael Glick, the Regional General Manager of Colonial Inn. I'm looking at your comment of saying, the main house in the center, if we remove the roof structure there, and I'm not an architect or a designer, but as a layperson, I'm trying to envision the look of that. Yeah, I loved the new plans. I thought it really looked very nice. I'm trying now to envision if we remove that and I had a seating area, and forget about the seating area, the building, it's closed at 1 o'clock in the morning and then someone approaching the building. On the left-hand side, the existing roof line's there. The right-hand side is a new roof line. And then in the middle, it's missing something. If I would have come to the board and said, I don't want to do that, would we say, why wouldn't you put something across the whole front? You're missing something in the middle. I mean, I agree with our guests that supported it. It looks harmonious to me. If I removed that centerpiece, I could probably find some arguments that why did we do that? I mean, is that off base by having that comment or?
No, not at all. I think that this is exactly what we are discussing. I think that what Henry Moss is putting on the table is how we're going to implement the historic reference and whether the modification that is being added to it preserves the impact that historic reference currently has. I think that he has brought an issue which is important, which is to say the issue of reversibility. That if we, for whatever reason, we wanted in the future to bring that house back to how it was for 160 years, that could be done. Now, the question is whether that potential needs to be expressed as an architectural feature. In other words, does the architectural feature need to imply that can be removed or that it's more or less temporal? Well, that's something that the architects can discuss because that's the reason God created them. I think that, Abby, did you have a comment?
I did, Luis.
Oh, sorry, Dennis.
I was coming at this in a different direction than Henry was, but I was coming to the same point. And that is, and I think the comment just made about coming up on this building at 1 o'clock in the morning and see it all lit across the way, that shocked me even more because that throws a whole different, excuse the pun, a light on the building. I think to change the look of the structure for a few tables that could have umbrellas on them, and you've already said that everybody outside rushes inside if it rains, obviously you can accommodate them. So I don't understand why we're marring this building just for a few tables undercover, because I agree with Henry. I don't think this is the kind of proposal that we want here on Monument Square.
And I'll just rephrase my statement. I said they want to run in and we can't always accommodate them. I said it's magic and they can just come in. So we don't accommodate them. They can finish their check, pay and leave is what usually happens.
Well, I think that we have heard very important observations. I think we should bring this to a close. I think that there are merits in the observations that have been made. And I think that it would be appropriate to address them, even if addressing them means that we're not going to change them. So I will encourage you that you follow that path, but it will be up to the commission to decide whether they want to continue or to go for a vote in the application. But of course, if you were to express a desire to continue the application, to have that opportunity, that most likely will be granted. So that's something that you have to.
And can you
decide.
clarify for me, if we went to a vote and it was a no vote, then is it, we can never address it in the future, or
No,
what is
no,
the procedure?
You can certainly address it in the future. See, the issue that we're discussing is that we have worked collaboratively for a long time to make a very good project. And now we're coming to a very, down to the end, we have an issue which I believe is a legitimate issue, but it's an issue that can be oriented in many ways. The issue of the pyramid of fine pay in the Louvre has been brought many times. Some people will die saying that that's the worst possible thing that was ever perpetrated to humanity. Some other people will say that's the best thing that was ever perpetrated to humanity. And I think that we are here in a situation where the way that you want to interpret what a historic reference is will allow you to either make a structure like the one you are proposing, or create a structure like the one that Dennis and Henry are proposing, you see, and both of them will be valid and adequate historic references. So that's the reason that I don't think that we're at an impasse, you see. And that's the reason that I think that, you see, when we have deep questions, because I believe that it's a very important question, then sometimes it's beneficial to think about it for a little more time, and then come to a conclusion that whatever tack you take, it's going to be legitimate and solid, as I'm sure it is right now. But it will have even more legitimacy because you will have the argument that you have reviewed these issues. See, that's the reason that I'm inclined to be very careful. And
Is there an approval with conditions? Like, for instance, I think for our team, removing the middle roof is probably not an option for us. If that's a no, ultimately, then we won't proceed forward. We just won't build it. If there's a condition that says fall short of that last pilaster by 2 feet, maybe that's a condition. Maybe we can accept that. But ultimately, if the board says, it's a no unless we take that middle roof off, I would say we would go to a vote and get that, because we're probably not going to say we'll remove that roof. I would remove the pilaster if that was a condition. No, not remove the pilaster. Come short of that pilaster. But if it's think about it for a month and come back and take that roof off, we might as well vote tonight if that's the case.
well, what I'm saying is not to think about it for a few months or anything like that. You see, think about it for 2 weeks, and then there will be a record that the issue was discussed, and that arguments were made in favor of the different positions, and that a decision was made based on a vote by the commission. I believe that would be a reasonable approach. The other reasonable approach is to go for a vote right now. But again, as you as the applicant have some say on that, because if you just stated, say, there's no way we're going to remove that roof. That is a very final statement. So there's no point in giving you any more time to say that you are not going to remove the roof. So if that's the case, I'm going to ask the commission for a motion to either approve with conditions, reject or continue the application. May I have that motion? Is it really available to speak, or? Are we not proposing a motion, meaning that we have to continue administratively? Okay, I cannot make the motion.
Well, Luis, I can move that the proposal for 48 Monument Square with an additional porches in front of the house and in front of the hair salon not be accepted.
Okay, there's a motion to reject the application of the colonial lien. So I'm gonna go around the table. A yes vote will be to deny the application, and no vote will be to approve the application. So Dennis,
Aye.
you are saying yes,
Yes.
yes to deny. Abigail,
Aye.
you're saying yes as well. Henry,
Yes to deny.
okay. Peter, Peter,
Hang on a sec, my microphone's not working.
Yes, it is.
Oh, you can hear me?
Yes.
yes.
Am I the last one? I missed what just happened.
There have been 3 votes. A yes vote will deny the application. No vote will approve the application. There have been so far 3 votes in favor of denying the application. Those are Dennis, Abigail, and Henry. So there are 2 votes left, yours and mine.
Well, I'm a reluctant yes. I would have liked to see this continue. I'll just go on the record to say that.
Okay, I'll vote just as a matter of solidarity with the rest of the commissioners. And I very much regret that this application has been denied, but I very much encourage you to take these comments in consideration. As you can see, they are very well based and reflect legitimate concerns about the interpretation of historic references. And it's something that you may be able to incorporate. And I believe that this application, it's one of the best applications we ever had, and that making minor changes in it and making a new application will be a relatively quick and easy process. So I shall look forward to seeing you again very shortly.
Can I just confirm that that minor change is removing the middle roof?
Well, I don't know if that's a minor change.
Right,
So-
but that's what we're looking for, right?
We're trying to address that. You see, that has been the issue of contention. Yeah, it is a matter of clarification because I think that it's on the record that that's what it said.
Okay, thank you very much.
You are most welcome. Thank you.
Thanks.
The next application is 100 Case Road. Is 100 Case Road here? Haley, do we have?
The next application, Louise, is 616 Lowell Road.
Thank you.
16 Lower Road, but I don't see it over here. What happened? I was missing it.
So that was on the most recent agenda. That was a continued item from last week's meeting.
You have a copy of that? Because obviously I printed the wrong one. I'm sorry. Yes. The next one would be, and what about 66 Monument Street? Haley.
The 66 Monument Street is a new public hearing.
Okay, all right. So, all right. I see. We're still in the continuance. Okay, 616 Low Road. I'm sorry.
No.
Oh, no. Okay, is anybody from 616 Lowell Road here?
This is Mr. Chairman, Thomas Falwell. I represent the applicant. And she, I think, is on the call. I was going to be on the call. Also on the call is Bruno Valenti, who's the actual proposed installer. We've supplied the commission and presumably you've seen it with what you asked, which is a revised plan. It's actually revised and from your plan that was originally filed to reduce the actual amount of fencing of the paddock area. It has dimensions on it as requested so that you can see exactly where it's going to be and the length of the fence that's to be installed. You'll see that it's now has the two paddocks on either side of the walkway and a smaller area up in the northeast corner, which is shown as lot 1. It continues to be the case, as indicated on the plan, that the fencing will be installed somewhere between 30 and 40 feet from the stone wall on Lowell Road. So there will be, as we stated before, no trees will be removed, no portions of the wall will be removed. So it continues to be proposed that that's the case. No tree removal at all. And you can see the updated and dimensioned configuration of the proposed fencing. This was approved, the application, as you remember, was approved 5-0 with the request that we provide you with an actual revised drawing that shows the final locations and some dimensions on it, so that you have something in the record that shows exactly what's proposed. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Mr. Valenti, Bruno Valenti is the installer. If you have any questions that are in his bailiwick, he's on the call as well, but this is what it is. This is what's now proposed. It's somewhat different than before, but nonetheless is a representative of what will actually be constructed.
All right, before I asked commissioners for comments, I just want to make the point that the commission will require exact plans, not something similar to what it will be built. The commission will require very precise plans to scale of exactly what will be built.
You have, Mr. Chairman, they have you see the dimensions.
Yeah, we see the dimensions, but I just want to make sure that what you are presenting is exactly what it's described, and it's not something that approximates the reality, but it's precisely in scale and in measurements what is being proposed. So that is the only comment. But let me open the discussion to the commissioners. Dennis. Is Dennis muted? What? Are you there, Dennis?
I have no problem with this. That's what we asked for scale, and we're seeing that. It still doesn't read it's 30 feet back, but maybe that's just me. It looks like it's very close to the road, but anyway, the
road right of way is not exactly where the wall is, but it will be shown on the plan as part of the record, set back 30 or 40 feet from the wall.
Okay. Anyway, if those are accurate measurements, I have no problem with it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Abigail.
I'm just confused. This 156-foot section of fence that's all the way to the right of the schematic, does that in no way connect to the other fencing on the road? Or is there a stone wall there or something?
I believe that area between the point closest to Lowell Road and where the actual paddock shows as the square setback from Lowell Road, that's is not to be, there's no fence proposed for there.
So why is there 156 feet of fencing that doesn't connect to anything?
Perhaps Mr. Valenti can answer that. He's the one that put the drawing together.
Hi.
I guess I was like, if you're paddocking horses and you have just a big open section, that doesn't seem.
Allow me to explain. So when I went there to measure with the owner of the house, she asked me to put a boundary fence to line up the lot 1 to the neighbor next door. So it's just an outline fence to the boundary, not to enclose horses. But it's not a definite proposal. She asked me to measure to see if she's gonna do that in the future.
Okay, so you're not proposing to build the 156-foot section of fence that doesn't connect anything to the road.
So in other words, she wants me to, where you see all the squares, that's where all the paddocks for the horses will be. The 156 is just to outline boundary. It's not to enclose any horses.
Okay, so there's no fence there.
That's my concern. I don't know if she wants to do it or not. That's why I outline every single measurements, because she can add whatever she wants to do.
No, I understand that, but so here's my issue with this is I a little bit like Dennis, I don't know if I'm just being particularly thick tonight, but this is very confusing to me because I see 2 sections of fence, the 156 feet, and then a section of fence along the top line that don't connect to anything, which a non-connecting fence, a split rail fence for paddock in this particular historic district, I think is appropriate. Orphan sections of fencing that don't connect to anything are unnecessary, and I don't know why we would approve them. If there's something that might be proposed and connected in the future, that's something that they could come back for. But the drawing that we requested, and I have the same 30 feet from the road issue, this may be a good approximation, but there's still some questions as to what exactly.
Well, it will be set back 30 to 40 feet, and that
Okay.
shows the plan, so that's where we have to place it.
Okay, so are the 2 kind of non-connected sections of fencing, one the 156 feet and the other one on the upper left corner, are those being built?
I believe that there's a fence that the kind of curved fence that connects up from the edge of from the northeast corner of the paddock closest to Lowell Road to the what Bruno describes as the boundary fence as it extends down to Lowell Road. I believe that is to be enclosed. So there is that curve line is also to be
Curve
fenced.
line is, I understand that. That's that paddock section where if you had a horse that needed to be separated for illness or something, absolutely, that makes sense to me.
Yes.
156 feet from that connection point to the dead ends into the road and doesn't connect back, is that being proposed and built?
I believe the owner would like to have that as a boundary fence. Whether it'll be built in the first instance when the rest of it is, may not be the case, but we'd like to have the ability to construct that, what she's referring to as a boundary fence as part of the approval.
Okay.
Can I just add something else? Just to be clear, the stone wall sits back about 7 feet from the road. And for me to do a proper fence, I have to set back from that wall another about 30 feet. So it's almost impossible to do a fence there because of all the obstructions, all the trees that's on the way. So that's why I want to be clear about that for you guys, that even if she wants to, it's impossible to do a fence close to the wall. It has to stay 30 to 40 feet away from the wall, regardless.
Okay, so my second question is, do we have a tree map? Is anything being removed?
No, I'm not going to remove anything.
Okay.
You can make that, you can, I mean, we've said that in our application.
So
May I say, sorry.
I don't have an objection to the paddocking, these non-returning sections of fence. I'm not, it's a little odd just because if the proposal is for paddock fencing in a split rail system in the farm district, we would anticipate not kind of non-returning border fences. What would be appropriate would be actual enclosure of the paddocking, because that would be keeping within kind of the historic character of the district, but other commissioners may feel differently. I just find that
I believe, Abby, that the section of the fence that extends from the upper left corner of the paddock towards the house of 616 is actually a replacement of a fence that was there, has
Okay.
been, fell down.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's a replacement in kind.
May I say something? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know, but that fence was always there. It just, but it started collapsing, so we piled it up. And we're putting it back. But it was there when we moved in.
Okay.
It was always there.
So that's just a replacement in kind.
It's literally the same exact.
Okay,
place,
and is that
same
true for the
fence,
entire
everything.
border fence or just that section?
Correct. That whole thing. We're replacing what was there.
The whole border fence it was existing and is being replaced, and the only
Yes.
new additional fencing is the paddocking.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah, I
that's,
have, there are pictures, even if you just Google our property, you
okay,
can see the pictures for before we moved in 2008.
okay, and what was the style of fencing that was there previously?
Exactly the same.
The same, okay, so
Yeah,
so the entire exterior border fencing is just replacement in kind, and the
Exactly.
new proposed fencing is just the paddocking.
correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Abigail. Henry.
I have no problem with the proposed fencing. I want to echo Luis's point, though, which is that we asked to have a drawing come back that would show where the fence is going to be.
This shows that.
Well, let me ask you this then. How is it that 156 plus 78 is 234 feet? And then over on the left, it's suddenly 267 feet. I'm not convinced that all of this is reconciled in a way that would be a public record of what is being approved. In other words, if you showed the paddock fence that's parallel to Lowell Road, set back 30 feet, that would change some of these dimensions or confirm them. And then we would have that on record and you'd be good to go. Is my arithmetic wrong?
I'd have to ask Bruno. Bruno's prepared the plan. I'd have to ask him about any discrepancy in the dimensions.
Few observations when I measure. First, the wall is not straight, so it's no way I can follow the wall 100%. So I made my straight line. So that's why the measurement is not going to be, in other words, if you try to add up, it's not going to be 100% square, because I made my own measurements to be square to the way the fence will look good, because nothing is up to measurement. So the wall is crooked. The line in the back, I didn't follow the property line 100%. So some points of the line, it's going to be a little over a foot away. Some points of the line will be a little further away because of trees and intrusions on the way. So I just found a clear path so I don't have to cut anything or I have to obstruct anything just to make the line clear.
Well, maybe all you need is a note on the drawing that says to be held back a minimum of 30 feet from the existing stone wall or something to that effect. All I'm getting at is to have a record of what you're doing.
The plan, I think, says that 30 at the bottom, 30 to 40 feet from the stone wall.
It's in the red, written in red in the front,
Upside
on the
down.
bottom, in the middle.
The plan as approved would require that to be 30 to 40 feet from the wall, or else it wouldn't be in conformity with what was approved. That's why we added that.
I won't belabor this any further.
If you have no other comments, Peter. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I understand what's going to happen. I do agree. It would be better if there were like a drawing with a scale on it, because I also am confused by the math, but I think I'm with Henry here. I don't want to belabor this point. I think it'll probably be fine. I don't know if it's possible to stake it out at this point. That might help, just in case. Do you stake it out before you install the fence?
I do.
I'm asking.
I do.
maybe that would be my one condition, is to stake out the boundaries or the points that you show on the map here. And we could administratively review it or drive by and just look.
Sure.
But I think it's probably going to be fine.
We can, if you guys want to, if we're gonna make everyone happy on the end to approve it, we can put string lines exactly where the fence is gonna go. And we can follow that map that I measure. So we can go there, put stakes, put string lines, so you know exactly where the path is gonna, the fences will be. And that's gonna be my decision. Probably make it easier for everybody to understand the drawing.
Fine, that would be my only condition. So thank you.
Thank you, Peter. I have to say that I think that the problem with its application, that we should not be spending any time on it, is that the drawing does not represent anything of what a normal person would understand of what is being built. Some parts are replacement in kind, some parts are new, some measurements are approximate, and I see that drawing, and it just, I cannot make any conclusions or learn what is going on there. There's absolutely no reason not to approve these, but I believe that this map or this plan is entirely inappropriate to support the application. So I don't see any way forward except it's approved with a condition that an accurate plan be submitted to the commission before anything is built. And that's my observation. Are there any comments from the public from here? Any comments in the people attending by Zoom? So if that's the case, I will ask the commission for a motion about the application of 616 Low Road.
We are happy as indicated to stake it out, Mr. Chairman, if that helps.
I think that the requirement is going to be that we have an accurate plan. Again, I reiterate that we should not be spending any time on this. This is a very straightforward application that doesn't have any problems, except that there are no plans. You see, the plans are done in a very casual way, and that it will not be appropriate as a record for the Historic Districts Commission. And that's all what it's holding this. But again, we are now at the level that we can make a motion. I think we should close the discussion. And again, I will ask the commission for a motion to approve, reject, or continue. And keep in mind that we can do approval with administrative requirements.
It's already been.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I asked a motion from the commission.
Yeah, okay, so
discussion is closed.
I think I'm going to attend the next meeting in person, by the way. So I'm going to go ahead and make a motion that we approve this application to install fencing with the two following conditions. One, that a plan be submitted to scale and with more detail that actually indicates exactly what is fence and what's not, and distances from stone walls and roads and ideally trees and what have you, but at least more detail. And that the second condition is that the installer, as suggested, will stake out and string the proposed fencing so we can, either commissioners or our town staff can drive by and check that against the plan that will be submitted. That's my motion.
Second,
Thank you, Peter. Is there a second?
second,
Okay, I'm going around. Dennis,
Aye.
Abigail,
aye.
Henry,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. So thank you very much, and we shall look forward to the detailed plans, and so we can all proceed. So
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Now, guide me about Haley. Who is the next applicant? Is it 100 Case Road for the new
Yes.
public hearings? Okay.
Yes.
Anybody from them here or in Zoom?
Yes, this is Jennifer Lauer, representing Hugh and Ruth Lauer at 100 Kays Road.
Welcome.
Ah.
I muted you.
Sorry, there we go. Yes.
No.
We would like to replace a window in kind on 100 Kais Road in unit 323.
You are saying that it's replacement in kind, is that correct?
Yes, it is a replacement in kind. The frame and trim paint will be the same, but the material is different. We are going from the wood to a more modern PVC trim and frame.
Okay, so I'll ask the town staff if it's replacement in kind with the only modification is the material. Is it something that needs to be reviewed?
Oh, okay. I was told that it had to be reviewed by you when I was submitting the application that you
well,
reviewed last time.
Well, this comes up every once in a while, so I'll
Okay.
ask you.
If the material has changed, then it's not a replacement in kind.
Okay, then it's not considered replacement in kind because the material has changed.
Ah.
So you want to make any additional descriptions of what you already made? Seems that it's just replacing a window.
It is, no, dimensions will be the same. The trim and paint colors will be the same. It will be new trim and frame material. It will be new glass.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I'll ask the commission for comments. Dennis?
Can you hear me?
Yes?
I have no problems with this.
Okay.
No
Abigail?
comments.
No objection.
Henry?
I don't object. Last time we looked at one of these, we suggested that the applicant might go back to the condo association and try to get a blanket approval for this. Since it comes up so frequently, we're wasting a lot of people's time. My other observation, which is really nothing to do with the vote, is that the owner might consider replacing it in aluminum rather than PVC because it'll last better.
Thanks for your comments, Henry. Peter?
I have no comment.
I have no comments either. Any comments from the public? In the absence of public comments, then I'll ask the commission for a motion.
So I'll move that we approve the application for a certificate of appropriateness to replace this window assembly as described in the application. And that's my motion.
Second.
Dennis?
Aye.
Abigail?
Aye.
Henry?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Thanks very much for coming.
Thank you.
All right. So the next public hearing, it's 66 Monument Street. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yes. Oh, you are here.
Yes.
Oh, like the old days.
Good to see you, Luis.
Good to see you.
Hello, everybody. Hi, so I'm Betsy Rosa with DSK Architects and Planners, and I'm here for 66 Monument Street. And Pam Gannon, one of the homeowners, is joining us online. So we finished the work that we were in here for last time, and I hope you all have had a chance to see it. We like it, the homeowners are happy with it, and we hope you approve. And so this time we are here to ask about replacing the windows in the carriage house, which on this photo is the building on the left, with just the one window on the first floor and one window on the second floor. It's a little hard to see, very hard to see in this photo, but those windows at the carriage house are 2/2 windows. Sorry, don't go yet, Haley. I mean,
Sorry.
yeah. So I don't know that you can see, but they're 2/2 windows. And you'll notice that there's one window on the ground floor and one window on the second floor. Now you can go to the next page. We think that that this change, that as you can see it now, so this is like now after construction, the clapboards have been replaced, the wood cedar roof shingles have been replaced. So nothing is the color that it was before, except the windows and various pieces of trim that were not replaced. So it's 2 windows now, and we believe that was done in about 1930s. They're not very good windows. They are now 6/6, not the 2/2. And the window on top is an original one. So now you can go to the next photo, Haley. And that's just a close-up of this. So, but this is, so now if we sort of walk, I'm going to do windows first and then get to colors. So if we walk around the building, you can see the two windows on the first floor. And Pam Gannon had John Brown, who is the window restorer who we used on the house. And he's somebody with a lot of experience replacing windows, restoring windows, excuse me, in Back Bay. And he looked at these windows. He said he thinks they're from about the 1930s when they did the renovations, probably when they turned it from a barn into a living structure. He wouldn't restore these windows. He says they're in terrible shape and not very good quality windows in the beginning. So he would not restore these. The window on the top, we'll get to that one a little bit later. It's original, but it's falling apart. It's from when it was a barn. It doesn't actually operate anymore. You're used to, there's a close-up. We'll talk about more when we get to the close-up. Okay, next sheet. This is the north side, just on the side. This has more windows downstairs, the same 1930s bad quality windows. And then the dormers. And so there's these two. And then Haley, if you go to the next page, there's two on the back and two on the other side. Those are all newer Harvey replacement windows. And they're just really bad shape. So we'd like to replace those also. Can you go to the next page? So this is a closer version, a closer picture of the upper window. Single pane. It's sort of a double hung. The bottom worked. The bottom sash sort of slid up. Now you can't reach it. There's a stair behind that. So you're on the landing. So the window is very high up. But it's also falling apart. Pam says it's held together with caulk. You can't operate it at all. So we'd like to replace this one, even though it's original. And then next page, this is just a image of the downstairs windows, the 1930s 6/6 that we'd like to replace to be 2/2s. And next one. And so that's a close-up of the Harvey replacement. These are, the muntins are between the glass. Muntins, you can see they're white. The rest of it's red. Next page. And, I thought that had the Marvin spec. Okay, so I submitted a Marvin spec page. We would just use the same ones that we had before. The clad in the wineberry color. Yeah. Are you looking for that page, Haley?
Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to find.
Okay.
I know we received
I
some
thought
new
it was
paint
after
colors.
that one. Yeah.
No, it appears it ends there.
Okay. All right. Well, it's the same spec that we had before, which I thought I submitted, pretty sure I submitted, but we can get
It's
to
a
that.
separate
if we
document.
need.
It is submitted.
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, well, so I'll move on to colors and we can talk about windows. Sound good? So this is as close as we can get to the colors in Revit. And Haley, is this a separate document or do you have the one that, can you go back to the one where you had before that you had the image?
Sure.
The photo on top of the roof and then the, yeah. So, so the colors as they stand, with that tan that looks pink on the body of the house and the dark roof colors were from the homeowner who lived there between 1989 and 1992. And they're not original colors. They're sort of brighter than what we think Second Empire homes are intended to be. So we've would like to ask for a different slate of colors. So starting at the top, the roof was the Benjamin Moore gunmetal, the dark gray, and we'd like to keep it that. That kind of shows what it was like before. It little lighter than it would be really. And then down below is just some images of it. So the dark roof and the body, instead of being that tan that looks pink on the clapboards, would be a light gray, the timber wolf. And windows would stay the same. Windows and doors stay the same. Marvin, Wineberry, and Benjamin Moore Country Red. And the accents are the, the medium I don't know, beige, cream, tan color with some of the accents, the small accidentals, some of the panels being the brighter, lighter, hushed hue color. So now maybe that front elevation. And it's this is our best interpretation of the colors in our Revit. If you zoom in on like around the front door, Haley, can you do that? Yeah, you can start seeing the dentals are the little dentals underneath. The balusters are the lighter color. And then there's around the front porch, there's some little red lines that are currently like that, and we would do the same thing again. And then if you want to go to Bonnie Crims's packet, I think you had that open before.
I'm sorry, can you elaborate on which?
It's the one that the color studio that says has the letter and then has the photos that have all that. There you go. So I won't go through all those, but that we have. This is from Bonnie Crims, who chose the colors and we think did a good job on it. Just showing you what everything would be. So this is the house as it stands now, getting ready for some paint. But again, the roof would be the dark gray. Body of the House of Clapboards would be a light gray. All the green trim becomes that the inner balance tan. I think that's all I have to say about it. Any questions?
Let's ask Dennis to start the comments.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I think I'm intrigued by this. So what we're seeing here is based on research, correct? You suggested you've done research on this, and this is sort of a period look based on research on period colors.
Correct. Yeah, and you can look at the Pamela Gannon, 66 Monument Street. So if you look through the Cambridge Historical Commission's paint color guides, these colors actually fit right in with those, where they recommend grays, tans, ochres, and warm beiges. And then Bonnie Crims, I'm not a paint expert, which is why I hired a paint expert. Bonnie Crims is a historic paint expert. She's done work for this old house. She kind of consults for across the country.
Great. Always suspicious when it's very attractive. It looks great. A question about your expectations. A question about the window. I understand the 30s windows. Frankly, I have no questions about replacing those, particularly if you're going to take them back to the original look, which will match the rest of the house, which is the 2/2. But you didn't say what the restorer had to say about the arched window at the top of the barn and whether that could be restored.
So he did take a look at that one and felt that it was not restorable. He said he would not restore it, and he's the expert. It is, if we want to, we can zoom in on it. It's held together. You can see there's wavy lines on it. It's really held together by caulk right now. The last person I had work on it, we just did the best we could and kind of caulked it back together. So unfortunately, it's gonna have to be replaced either way, or it's gonna be plywood. It's just, unfortunately, it's an old barn window that wasn't built to the same quality as the windows in the main house are beautiful. You know, so for example, there's no weights in this window. This was just an old barn window that unfortunately has just deteriorated.
Right, I remember seeing those windows with you in the house.
Oh, which are beautiful. Those are restored and they look gorgeous.
Will you reconstruct it just like it is with that sort of unique pane that moves up and down on the bottom?
I mean, I'd be interested in the board's opinion on that. We could.
I guess I'm more interested in the look, so I'm not too uptight about that.
Okay.
We would probably, while it would be constructed like a double hung, all the panes would be fixed. We wouldn't have them move because what's behind that is the stair landing. So the window is, you know, you're on the landing and the window is way up there. You can't reach it.
Right.
So, so we could make it look like that, but it wouldn't be movable, I would think.
Okay, those are all my questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Dennis. Abigail.
Yeah, I have no objection to the color scheme. I think it's historically appropriate, keeping with our guidelines and attractive. Yeah, it's always a shame when an original window can't be restored, but if it can look as close to this as possible, then I'm comfortable with a replacement as long as it has this same proportion and detail.
Thank you, Abigail. Henry.
I thought the application was excellent and I would support each aspect of it.
Thank you, Henry. Peter.
That's what I was gonna say, whatever Henry just said.
And I agree with everybody. Any comments from the public in the audience? Any public from the public in Zoom? In the absence of public comments, I'll ask the commission for a motion on 66 Monument Street.
I move
So I'll-
to approve the application for 66 Monument Street as submitted.
I'll
Second,
second it.
okay, Dennis,
Aye.
Abigail,
Aye.
Henry,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. So-
Great,
Peter, I'll
thank
let you
you.
take the more
Thank you.
complex ones.
Yeah,
Thank
nice.
you. Thanks very much.
Thanks. Thank you all.
Okay, so the next application, it's Concord Academy. Makes me feel like the old days again.
Nice to be back together around the table.
It's only 7:20 PM according to the schedule.
Exactly.
There we go. Well, we've been on 9:15 last night, so this is early.
The best part is that I know what are we going to do here, even if it's before you present anything.
Well, thanks to the commission for all your service. Thank you.
No, I want to hear the narrative.
So Don Kingman, 166 Main Street, Concord Academy. With me is Tom Kearns.
President of DSK Architects and Planners, the resident of 544 Cambridge Turnpike. And I'm joined by a couple of my colleagues that are on screen. David and Courtney, introduce yourselves.
Hi, good evening. This is David Chase, Senior Product Manager at DSK.
And hi, I'm Courtney Borelli, architect working on the project as well at DSK.
A quick overview, and then I'm going to turn it over to Tom to go through some plans. The high point of this is a Centennial Art Center, a new performing arts center building that we'd like to build on campus. This has been a number of years that we've been working on this project. We've had multiple conversations with town staff. We've met with abutters and neighbors and had meetings for that. And we're just starting the permit process here. So last night we had Natural Resource Commission. Tonight we're before you. And what we're trying to do here is to build a 37,000, give or take, square foot performance space that would contain a music hall with about 125 seats, a theater and support space. This theater would have about 175 spaces or seats. And then we have a P3, a process, presentation, and production lab. Think of that as a white box, if you will. And then along with associated parking and infrastructure. When we decided we were going to move forward on this, we looked at alternative locations on our campus. And as many as you know, our campus, we're hemmed in by Main Street on the south, the river on the north, and then we have neighbors either side. And in order for us to do this, we need to move 2 residential buildings that currently exist on campus. We want to take a 2-car garage at 238 Main Street and convert that into a faculty apartment that will allow us to maintain our adult population on campus. And this will give us a balanced and cohesive campus that we were looking for. We're going to have improved green space by what we're working on, and resource protection, and Tom will get into that in a second. But most importantly, it will give us this 21st century teaching building that we desperately need. I'm going to turn it over to Tom to walk through the site plan and some of the specifics for you.
Thank you so much. So Haley running the presentation. Yeah, so Haley, I feel like I want to stand at the screen and point to things.
Please
Is
do,
that
because I feel the same.
Is that
You
okay?
should start over. And,
Yeah, and then, so I think we have given you a number of things. I think this is deck 3. I think this is the most appropriate place to start. So this is just perfect, Haley. And so I'm going to, I would suggest that I will move through the content pretty efficiently. And please stop me if I need to clarify or go into more depth. We can go into infinite depth, obviously, but we have a lot of material. So I'll just move through it, but interrupt me anytime. Okay. All right. So thanks. And Haley, may we go to the next slide, please? So this first slide is, thanks, Don. This first slide just generally shows some campus context. Okay. And the commission is generally familiar, I think, with the Concord Academy campus. This is to remind everybody about what we would call the campus vocabulary, the vernacular of the campus language. And if I started in the lower left, you see the chapel, which is that white form with the tower. And the campus is comprised of simple, understated gable forms, gable roofs, as you make your way around the slide, with gable dormers, basic simple forms with window patterns that can vary, that are generally organized in compositions, generally with a vertical proportion, with materials and color palettes that are typically clapboard and other related wood or wood-like siding in color tones that are whites and grays. Okay. Buildings meet the ground with some kind of foundation articulation generally. And the goal, I think, from the school's point of view, is to really weave the campus together. And so we start from a palette and an architectural vocabulary that I believe the commission is fairly familiar with. And what I'm going to say is, as I present our proposal, we're going to draw directly from everything that's been approved, given the work we've done over the last 10 years together. Okay, so the building forms, the proportional systems, the exterior palettes, the colors, the window selections, the lighting, we've approved it all before together, and we've recomposed it into something that we're calling West Campus. So if we go to the next slide. Thank you, Haley. So this is now, and I'll give you a little bit of orientation. We had a general introduction with the commission about 2 months ago, maybe a couple of months ago. So I know people are generally familiar with this, but I'll give a general orientation. Main Street at the bottom of the slide, the Sudbury River near the top of the slide, and the chapel is in the kind of the upper right-hand quadrant of the slide. Today, the chapel kind of marks an edge, a kind of edge of East Campus, a kind of boundary. And everything to the west of the chapel today is a bit of the back of house of Concord Academy. And what you can see in this drawing are a series of parking lots, roadways with pedestrian conflicts, a couple of little buildings that are on islands, and then some dark hatched zones, which are typically tall landscape arborvitae-like materials that obstruct flow and views through the campus. Okay. This has been the place where dumpsters are located and cars park and trucks service the campus. It represents about 40% of Concord Academy. So this West Campus project reconceives everything west of the chapel, essentially. It recomposes it and creates a new vision for the future. Today, as you can see with all this hatch mark, it is comprised of a lot of impervious surface. A lot of impervious surface and one play field that we're going to talk a little bit more about. Yeah, thanks, Haley. So I think with that, there's a couple, just to name the existing buildings, we're going to talk specifically about Heights Cottage, which is near the existing senior garden that we're going to refer to as Academy Garden. There's going to be a transformation of senior garden into Academy Garden, which means we're going to open up the landscape and increase the light and air and the utilization of that space. It's bordered by Heights Cottage, which we would like to relocate. Also, there's a residential building called 220, which we're going to propose to relocate. There is a barn that's 242 that's existing to remain, that's not going to be touched. And there is a house 238, which we call 238 and 238B, that we'd like to discuss the garage of that house. 238 came before the commission a couple of years ago when there was a renovation and a replacement of some windows. So there's a complex set of puzzle pieces here, and I hope I can take you through it in a way that all makes sense. So Haley, maybe we can go to the next slide. Okay, so while the existing condition is quite unorganized, our goal here is to essentially do one thing, and that is to feature and honor the chapel. And so we're creating a new Centennial Arts Center, which is the large rectangle shown to the left of the Academy Garden, that frames with the SUFAC complex, the main school building complex, the two elements that are similar in scale frame the chapel and senior garden and bring that to the center of the campus rather than an edge. And that is the major thesis of this project, is to do everything we can do to center the chapel as this very important and spiritual place for the campus community, and then make connections. So we are not only proposing to open up the Academy Garden to more use and utilization and center it as a primary open space, that we're also proposing a new West Lawn with pedestrian ways that create a strong east-west campus connection for pedestrians, connecting East Campus all the way to the western boundary of campus. So a new lawn. You'll see in the darker shades, 2 parking areas. So we've taken that mishmash of parking lots and we've concentrated that into 2 efficient and understated parking panels, right, that accommodate our parking needs and open up open space opportunities. To do all this in the center part of West Campus requires us to relocate 2 buildings. So we're proposing to relocate a 220 Main Street house to the west and relocate Ides Cottage also adjacent to it to the west. And together those 2 buildings with the garage of 238 transformed into an additional adult resident form Academy Village. Okay, so we refer to this area as Academy Village, and those buildings frame a common lawn in the center of it. So yet another green space. The signature element of this may be the fact that Concord Academy is willing to give up one of their play fields and do a restorative landscape plan to turn that into a new pollinator meadow. And that is a large tract of land on a campus that's constrained. I think there's a lot of excitement for what that can mean. And so this entire zone along the riverfront will be restored as a pollinator meadow with simple passively used mown paths that make their way through it. Okay. Another element of this proposal is that we will relocate the west gate from its existing location adjacent to Phelps House to the existing curb cut that is essentially brings you into the 242 barn situation, that it brings you to that property. So that'll become the new west gate that'll give access to that parking panel and provide emergency apparatus with access to the whole western part of the campus. And we've reviewed this with the fire department, and we meet their needs. Okay. We are also asked to provide a plan for a reserve parking panel option for given our parking proposal that we're going to go to planning board with, where we're trying to not repave the entire campus, and we're trying to find a nice balance of parking. And so we are proposing that there's a reserved parking panel that will be adjacent to the Phelps parking lot, that we could, if we found that there was a parking problem in the future, we could come back to town commissions and there would be a relief valve for that. But I think we've got the support of the planning staff to, in our conversations with Elizabeth Hughes, to say, let's start with something that's more conservative and favors green space over asphalt. Okay, done. What did I miss? Catch it all? Okay, good. Pretty clear. Okay, we have a couple of exhibits here that I don't think we need to spend a great deal of time on. This just happens to be a grading plan, which we could go through in some detail as required at some point. There are regulatory constraints around floodplains and riverfront setbacks. We went over all that in detail last night with NRC, had actually a really great and positive discussion with them about our strategies working within this riverfront zone. So if we maybe go to Haley, to the next slide, please. And this shows our planting plan. There's a big commitment to plant materials. All valuable trees will be surveyed and documented and obviously preserved. And then Concord Academy has made a big commitment to new trees and other plant materials, all native plant materials. And so, and those are indicated, and you can see it here and all documented in our plant list. And at least it first round initially reviewed by NRC and Delia. Okay, but a big commitment there. And what I think you're going to see is that this reorganization of the landscape really opens up the campus and the meadow and the river to the community from Main Street in ways that we're very quite excited about. Okay, next slide, please, Haley. Thank you. This is a lighting plan. And so I will show you that all site lighting has been reviewed and approved by the commission in the past. We are extending that palette. Okay, so this locates specific fixtures for parking areas, for gates, for pedestrian ways, for service areas. The various fixture types and pole heights and all have been established, and we want to continue that whole character. That includes the landscape character that we've all worked on together, which is the entire green apron that starts at the other end of campus and comes all the way along Main Street. And we will continue that all the way to the western edge, so that we've got one, beautiful continuous green apron all along Main Street with, fences, gates, lights, plant materials, that kind of really completes that entire landscape. Okay, so we can go into great depth on the landscape, on the lighting, but I think we have fixture cuts, photometrics, lumens, etc., all dark sky compliant. Okay. Next slide, please. So I've got a couple of slides here that simply document the exterior elevations. The top drawing is the south elevation. So this is the elevation of the Centennial Arts Center that faces Main Street. The Centennial Arts Center, we call it the CAC for short, is comprised, as Don mentioned, of the three main performance spaces. The P3 space, which in the south elevation is the kind of prominent central gabled form with lots of windows, right? That is that process production and presentation studio space. It's kind of a white box. You want light there, and you want the work that the students and the faculty are doing to be on display. The rest of this south-facing facade we think is composed in window groupings that have appropriate proportions to the campus. The roof is just articulated with dormers with double pitched gable roofs that you find on campus. So this should, fit in, and P3 stand out just a little bit. A cupola that will not be lit, that we'll be using for mechanical systems. So it'll be louvered, and a wraparound porch from half of the south facade that wraps around to the east to the main entrance. So there'll be a way for the campus community and the community at large that's coming to performances to have some sheltered porch space in the landscape and coming in and out of that that main entrance. So that's the south facade as it faces Main Street. The bottom drawing is the east elevation. That facade faces Academy Garden and the chapel. Okay, and so you're seeing the end of what's above the south facade, right? That has that P3 studio space and other ensemble and practice rooms for music in that two-story element. The right side of the slide is the music hall. Okay, and this is a single volume music recital space that has, I think, a beautiful relationship with Academy Garden and also a prominent relationship with the meadow and the river beyond. And then, like the building forms that are on the main part of campus, on the east side of campus, you've got main articulated building forms with gasketed connectors. And here we have glass connectors that connect building forms that have a variety of subtle material changes and color changes. So as you'll see in our subsequent slides, we've got a white palette for the south facade, white that's here. As we move around to the chapel side of the music hall, it becomes buffet gray. Those are connected by a glass gasket. And then you'll see us move to the theater. We're in a Duxbury gray. So we've got three essential color palettes for a relatively large building to break down its scale and have it relate to the rest of campus. Next slide, please. And here, north elevation, now the top drawing is facing the meadow and the river. You see the prominent music hall with its glass audience looking out to music performances and out to the meadow beyond. The right side of that upper image is the theater that Don mentioned, also with natural light. Most of the time in theaters is preparation, set design, and it's 90% of the life of the theater is you're getting ready for a show. And so we've got lots of natural light and views, and then blackout situations for actual performances. The theater itself has a flat roof. Flat roof gives us opportunity for photovoltaic panels. We're trying to do our best to meet Concord Academy's ambitious sustainability guidelines as well as the town. I think we're doing great in that regard. You also see above the connective tissue area, we've got some screening so you don't see mechanical systems in that area. We don't think you'll see mechanical systems from a public way. And then the bottom drawing is the west elevation. This now is facing toward Academy Village and the west side of campus. You see on the left side that west end of the theater. The right side is the west end of the first drawing I showed you, the south facing building that has theater shops in it. And then in the center is a stair tower and entrance that recalls the new school entrance that we did at the main school lobby on the East Quad that we all reviewed and approved together. And so this is another version of that that has some vertical element, and we'll announce that from the coming in from the parking areas on that side of campus. What you'll also see is some red lines here that have they mark from our average grade calculation where we find 35 feet, right, which is our zoning benchmark. Our roof lines are anywhere from in the 8 to 9 feet, typically above that for unoccupied space where we have structural and mechanical systems. We'll be asking for a waiver for that. It's similar to what has happened in other projects that we've worked on campus. We think that it would be a reasonable request. The cupola itself goes beyond that. What I'm going to show you, so we've documented that so you can see specifically the various roof height and ridge heights around the proposed complex. What I would like to do is go to the next slide and just show you why we think this is important and the context. And so again, now we go back on that top drawing. That's once again that south elevation. We call it the east-west site section. So we've cut right across the campus in front of the chapel. And you're seeing the middle school, main school complex with the existing and the old Performing Arts Center in the background that has that kind of swooping roof form, and the science building complex we did in the past. And here you see the Centennial Arts Center, and you see relative masses and their relationship to the chapel, which is at the center of the composition. And then the bottom drawing takes a site section from Main Street basically to the river. And it shows you the relationship of the CAC to the Haynes Hobson Bailey Commons project that we just completed together. I mean, HCC approved that, and you can see again very similar mass forms and very similar mass and scale to all of the historic houses along Main Street. So we think we have a nice relationship with the chapel. We think we're in really good shape with the inner buildings on campus, and also a nice relationship with historic Main Street. And we're creating the kind of the minimum volume we need to make the program work for performing arts. Okay, on a site that's got challenges because we've got high water table and we've got height limits, and we're kind of working within there. Okay, but we know that that's definitely an issue to discuss. Next slide, Mike. I'm just going along. So that's okay. So I would suggest that we maybe start with the lower left-hand quadrant of this slide. That's a site plan that shows us standing on Main Street, just in front of 228 Main, right? This is the head of school's house. And you are looking across the landscape into the site for the CAC. And the upper left box, that image is the existing condition. And you can see there's layers of, let's say, overgrown landscape that block any views into the site, into Academy Garden and beyond. The upper right image is a view, a literal view of the CAC with the proposed trees shown. And the lower image, because we knew that you were going to say, don't depend on those trees, is we just turned the trees off. Okay, so you could actually see the building in the landscape. And what we're excited about is you're going to be able to see to the right of the building, the Academy Garden, which is going to be spectacular, and to the left through to the meadow and the river in ways that you can't today. Okay, next image, please. Next slide, please. This is now basically standing in the same location on Main Street, but you're hovering above. This is a bird's eye perspective. And just wanted to reinforce the existing condition. There is a senior garden that's just in front of the chapel that's totally overgrown with these big arborvitae. It's a closed room that gets smaller and smaller every year and gets less and less use, and for a really sacred space. The rest of it is chain link fences and overgrown landscape that just obstructs movement, airflow, and views. And the whole thing is paved with impervious paving. And Don and the leadership group have said, let's do something that really maximizes the value of this whole piece of property, and have made a huge commitment to reducing impervious surface, creating new green space. And then you can see in the lighter color the kind of play field that is proposed to be transformed into pollinator meadow. Okay, here's the old tennis court. There were tennis courts back in this zone, and the play field. All those benefit from the Moriarty campus that Concord Academy developed, that allows us to think about moving some of these things off the main campus, right? Because they have an athletic campus. But you can see the transformation from something that's essentially entirely paved with a couple little building islands to something that has a west lawn with pedestrian ways that really connect all the systems together. And the pollinator meadow will pull itself through to the parking areas. We'll have sustainable rain gardens and waterways that pull some of that landscape vocabulary also forward, just to reduce mown lawn maintenance, and get that right balance. Okay, next slide, please. And this is now you've moved from the front of 228. You've moved up Main Street just a little bit, and you're standing looking at the 242 barn and the existing curb cut into the site in that location. And this is now our proposed new west gate, relocated from the Phelps curb cut. And the upper right image is the 242 barn with the relocated 220 house and Ides cottage in place with the existing and proposed landscape there. There's nothing to see. you cannot see it. Here we've stripped away the trees just so you can see there's Ides and there's the roof slope of 220 behind the barn. So you can kind of see that in your packages. You probably can see them even a little bit more clearly. But the whole idea here is to have very little, if any, change along this public way in terms of what you're going to see in 220 and Ides Cottage, given the screening that CA is committed to and is in process of working with neighbors on how to do that effectively. Okay. Good. Thank you. Next slide, please. This is our drone. Don was good enough to fly a drone along the river. This is spring water level. I don't think it's the highest water, but it's pretty high. And so you can see we're looking through the basically the riverbank and trees and other foliage before the leaves come out. And you can see the chapel in the position on the left. And in the rendering, you can see the chapel kind of in the same position. Here, the rendering, we should probably be pulled back 50 feet to be hovering above the river, but it's basically the same angle. You see chapel to chapel. Through the trees, you can see the existing 220 house in place. That's what you're looking at as you look through there. And that we're proposing to be relocated, and in its place will be the new CAC building and the theater, which is, you know, actually not that different in height and similar at one end in location to it. So we wanted to give you some sense of what you see from a public way. Very often when you're on the river, it's many feet lower than this. I mean, we're not typically out there at its highest point, but it just gives you a sense of that. Maybe we go to the next slide, please. Yeah, and this is another river view. And
it's on the property line, on the western edge property line, looking at is existing and without trees.
Yeah, thanks, Don. So this one, so the 238 house that's right out on the river there is in that position. Okay, the 242 barn that exists is here. And the proposed 220 relocation is that building, and the Ides Cottage relocation is that building. Right? They're both positioned to be out of the floodplain. In fact, they're 3 and 4 feet higher than the floodplain. So they're actually in a good, what we think is a good and safe position. We appreciate the comments about not putting, let's say, existing structures in greater peril through a relocation. We think that they're actually going to be safer because we're going to have contemporary foundations for them rather than their existing rubble foundations. And we by code, we've got to be at least 1 foot above floodplain. We're both kind of 3 and 4 feet. So we're feeling good about that. Also, I think it's worth noting that both projects are well within required setbacks. So by right, we're okay in these locations. And you can see from that position on the river in the upper, let's see here. So maybe the lower is good to start with because we've turned the trees off, right? So this is the 238 existing house that was renovated several years ago. We brought that through HTC. That is the garage. That is part of the project that we would renovate using the same kit of parts, windows, colors, etc., to do that renovation. And there you can see Ides Cottage and 220. And we think there is quite a bit of planting that exists in this zone between those proposed relocated buildings and the riverfront. The CA would like to keep intact that plant material. So there's going to be a good buffer, and also proposes to add additional buffers to the neighbors. And so that gives you a little bit of sense from the river. Next slide, please. Okay, great. This just gives you a bit of overview, bird's eye. So this is if you're kind of hovering above a bit of the meadow, you're seeing this is the 238, 238B renovation, and you get a sense of located the buildings kind of moving into this position. And you can see here 220 and Ides Cottage in those locations kind of in this zone. So we would increase and enhance any kind of plant buffering to neighbors to make sure we're being good neighbors. The other thing we've done to the 220 building that you can see in this drawing is today. So first of all, we're not changing the unit count for the number of faculty living on campus, but we are repositioning. Today, the 220 barn that was renovated into a residence has a one unit that's basically in a raised basement that makes the whole house tall. When it's relocated, we're going to reduce it by 5 or 6 feet. So we're going to bring the whole mass of that building down. And that's why we're utilizing the garage as an additional unit. So we end up with unit neutral, and we can bring the overall scale of 220 down. And we can also make sure, that we're not having to excavate down because we've got a high water table in that area, but out of the floodplain. Okay. Did I miss anything? Good. Okay. This gives some detail, right? This is 220 existing and proposed. And so we are going to be updating windows and doors to something we think is going to be more appropriate to the pre-CA renovation, I think, that was done with kind of window
This is
packages.
probably renovated. The school acquired this in the 80s. And sometime in the late 80s, early 90s, it was converted into a 2-3 family, I should say.
Yeah, so we'd like to bring that back to what we think would be its historic character, and through high quality windows and just a composition we think is going to be more respectful of the historic period of the building. And maybe we go to the next slide, please. Try to move quick. Yeah, this gives some details in terms of windows regularized and recomposed. We are adding that second floor fire escape stair in that location, and you can see that the kind of rest of the changes that are made and patching it back together, and basically trying to do our best to give it a kind of dignity and integrity and a color palette that's similar to what it is. Okay, next slide, please. And this is Ides Cottage. This also will receive some upgraded windows and tune-up of trim elements, but in basically replacing in kind. I mean, we're making very little change to it, trying to keep it just intact in terms of the way it is, but trying to update where we need to. So we next slide can show the some of the changes are documented in the package in terms of the various elements that we think will be historically respectful of this building. It was about 1900, I think, in terms of its date. Okay, next slide, please. And lastly, this is the Home and Gardens Project of the Year award winner in 1960 when it was created as the model for contemporary living. It was renovated a couple of years ago by Concord Academy in terms of window replacements and a little bit of tune-up, mostly interior. And it is the garage and the connectors turn to get a little bit of a facelift and tune-up. And we will propose to use a similar package of materials that were in keeping with that kind of modernist 1960s vocabulary. And I think maybe, Haley, in the next slide, we have that documented. So this shows just a couple of modest changes that we're proposing for the exterior. Most of it is the interior fit out. And some nice changes to the site because we're able to pull the driveway away, reduce impervious areas, do some good things for the health of the site. And I think that may be it. The next slide, please. Yeah, I'm sorry, the other side and some of the changes that we're proposing. Again, in keeping with a proposed project that was approved by HTC a couple of years ago. And last slide, please. and the gazebo. And so this is the last piece. This is the Monroe gazebo that is behind Monroe House on the other side of Main Street today. And it is returning to nature. I mean, this is what it's like. And CA is committing to pick it up, relocate it, and restore it as a wonderful historic artifact and educational moment. We are proposing that it could live in the meadow as something along a lone path that would be a place for reflection or small gathering. And this is Alfred Monroe sitting there in his gazebo. He was known as the photographer of Concord, from 1877 to 1902 or something like that, and captured much of Concord. So this is a special opportunity, I think, to invest in something that's not going to it's not going to make it much longer. And we think that it might be something that'd be quite beautiful in the meadow with the kind of flora and animal habitat that we'll see there. And I think that's it. So can we go to deck 4, please, Haley? And I am going to just go rifle through these just to show you colors, but I'm not going to go detail unless you want detail. Okay, so these are the material elevations. You've seen us present these before in other projects. If we could go to the first slide, please. So this will show you, and I'm not going to go through each one of them, but I just want to generally show you the material and color palette for each of the facades. So facing south, it's CA white. And you can see all of the other, the Dove metal gray, standing seam, the black window, things that we've really talked about before. If we go to the next slide, please. As we turn the corner, we have the building we were just looking at in CA white, and we go to the music hall, which is Booth Bay gray. Okay, with a big white barn door and white trim, but the Booth Bay is one of the classic CA colors, and it's found on the main school grouping is in Booth Bay. If we go to the next slide, please. And this is now facing the meadow. There's the music hall Booth Bay gray, and then we go to a historic Duxbury gray for the theater, which is just going to, that's a bigger program element. It's going to recede a little bit more in that darker gray, but also a historic, beautiful historic color that's beautiful in different light. So we're pleased to propose that with white gaskets in between a la East Campus than what we did there. And then the last one is the west elevation. If we go to the next slide, please. Yes, and then so here we see that west facade of the theater and the west facade of that, the Main Street facing building in white with a white stair tower and entrance vestibule. So, and obviously there's more detail of all of the parts and pieces captured in the little call outs, but I know you know that very well. That would end the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Excellent as usual. I'll ask the members of the commission for comments. Dennis?
It's overwhelming, so I don't even know where to begin. It's impressive. My immediate questions are, and this will take a walk around the site to deal with, is you're opening up some sight lines and closing up some others. Some of them I kind of like closed. I'm not sure I like all the open sight lines, but it's something I'm going to need to walk around and take a look at. But I think it's impressive overall. It's a handsome building. There's nothing about it that's objectionable based on the other things we've worked on, and I've been involved in these projects before for Concord Academy. So it's an impressive project. But right now I need to absorb and need to spend more time on actually walking around.
Mr. Chair, may I just address that very briefly?
Yes, please.
Dennis, I appreciate your comment about the sidewalk, and we will be prepared to put up easels and boards of each one of these views in their position. I think that's the best way to understand it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Abigail?
Yes, I'm looking forward to the site visit. I think it's a lot to take in. My overall impressions of the project are positive. My only area of concern at the moment would be the visibility of the waterway from the waterway at night. How lit up could that building be? In case of an evening performance or something along those lines, I'd be curious to see what the perspective from the river is in the evening. But other than that, I'm just looking forward to the site visit.
Thank you, Abigail. Henry.
I'm not only impressed by the quality of the design, but it's an outstanding presentation, both in terms of thoroughness and clarity. And I really would like to congratulate you for that. I also would welcome the possibility of a site visit. And I've always been fascinated by the way the Concord Academy campus uses a screen of historic houses to allow much larger, more complicated buildings, chemistry buildings, and so on and so forth behind that. And the scale jump has never struck me as being problematic. I have one tiny question, and it my fellow commissioners, I'm sure, will think that I've taken this straight from the Colonial Inn discussion, but I noticed that in a number of elevations, you pick up on the fascia of the porch and have included in the clapboard structures a built-in trim line of a different color between first and second floor. And those, I think in a way, those undercut the massing that you've developed, which I think is very sophisticated as you go around the building. And I would just think again about whether or not they in any way invalidate some of the stronger things that you've already done. The landscape plan I studied pretty carefully, and I thought it was very, very good. Not easy, complicated. And I'm delighted with the moves that you're making towards things like a pollinator meadow. It's not easy for people to visualize, and I think it's excellent. So thank you, and I look forward to more.
Thank you.
Thank you, Henry. Peter.
Yeah, I'll echo again what Henry said. I think Tom and company, it's an excellent campus reorganization. It's a really sophisticated plan, and I also need to digest it a little bit more. Really, the only question I have in the short term is, it looks like you're corralling all the mechanical equipment on the roof, kind of in the middle of the building. Is that right?
That's
and
right.
my only fear is, given that you're already within the 100-year floodplain, is there other mechanical or site equipment or roofscape changes that might be coming? And that's really, again, that's really our purview, is what it looks like on the outside.
Yeah.
That's really the only thing I would be concerned about, is if that started to grow or other stuff appeared that we can't see right now. That's just a comment.
I think that's an excellent comment. We are both being careful about going down because of water, and we are careful not to have mechanical equipment on top of performance spaces because they're in conflict in terms of vibration and acoustics. So it's rather limited, but we think we've also been pretty disciplined. I think we've got our mechanical equipment on the roof in a safe place where we can screen it. We will have a couple of site items in, I believe we'll have a kind of dumpster and emergency generator like element with a screen. So we will make sure we present that to you very specifically.
Okay. Well, terrific. I know you will. And again, you're really setting the standard for presentations and for how to address all of these various issues. So I also commend you and thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. I'll say everything my fellow commissioners said. And I'll ask for public comments. Any comments from the present audience?
Yes, I do. Sorry. Hi,
Could you identify yourself?
yeah, hi, it's Andrew Pedder. I'm in 252 Main Street, so neighbour of Concord Academy. I want to say that Don and Tom have done a great job of sort of communicating with us about the plans. And certainly feel that we've been kept up to date with most of it. I felt like I learned a bit more about the West Gate tonight. I didn't fully appreciate that happening. So when it comes to that, interested to know about lighting, because that's a very quiet road right now. It just has Don on it, right? So understanding that a bit more, but also the fact that 4 new families are going to be tucked onto our property line in behind the barn that's already there. So we've talked about that already, obviously. But I think the thing that I'm interested in, certainly my neighbours are interested in, is what alternatives are there for, whether it's both of those houses or one of those houses somewhere else on the campus. Appreciating that it's a very tight campus, and I would also, I should add that the detail that these guys have gone into around explaining the pollinator meadow, all of that's just fabulous. I think there's just no way that can be criticized in any way. But selfishly, from our perspective, and also from, I think, from the rivers, the river view, it'll be interesting to see what sort of visibility, because I wasn't necessarily sure I could see Ides and 220 from the river from your portrayal there. And seeing where they are going to sit, I think you will see them from the river. And I like the comment about the light pollution from the theatre. It'll be interesting to see what there is for that. So from a personal perspective, clearly it affects us significantly. Obviously, it's the Concord Academy's land and they are meeting all the things that they need to meet. But we're just curious to know if there's alternatives for both or one of these properties, especially Ides, which is tiny, it's small. So yeah, so they're the 2 things. One is what's the detail behind the West Gate, because that's extremely low traffic impact on us at the moment, whereas a main gate will be, I assume, more significant. And then if there is alternatives for those 2 properties or one of those properties. So this isn't news to these guys. We've been talking about it. I've sat here for 2.5 hours, so I might as well make the point.
Thank you very much. Any other comments from the public? If there are no more comments, then I will ask the commission for a motion to continue this application.
So moved to the next meeting or to a site visit, correct?
Exactly, to continue the application with a site visit
And
for the next meeting.
what the next meeting date is, remind me, sorry.
September 1?
September 1st.
September 1st.
Will that work for Don, for you and Tom?
And site visit that morning?
Site visit that morning and continue to September 1st.
Excuse me. That's my motion. Sorry, I'm coughing, but that's the motion.
A second.
Second.
Okay, Dennis?
Aye.
Abigail?
Aye.
Henry?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. So we look forward to
The time of the site visit?
8 o'clock.
Great. Thank you all.
Thank you. Nicely done.
Nicely, very nicely done. Okay, the next applicant is Academy Mortgage, 34 Main Street. Is the applicant here?
Yes, here. Hello.
Perfect. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Laura Mullins, and I am running a business, Academy Mortgage, above the Grasshopper Shop at 34 Main Street. And I'm here with Bill Crosby of Crosby Design to ask for permission to put up our sign. Bill, are you there?
How about that? Can you hear me now?
There you are. Yes.
I don't see my pretty face on there, but I don't know what's going on. But anyway, how you doing? Hey,
Hi,
Laura.
Billy.
Hey, guys. You want me to go? Or
Yeah, go ahead.
If you can go ahead and present what you're planning to.
All right. I just can't see the pictures on the screen, but I can go by mine. We have pictures in there?
Haley
has the pictures. Yeah.
There we go.
There we go.
Yeah. So Laura is above the Grasshopper Shop in that, it's all one floor, right, Laura?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at the Grasshopper Shop, the awning there, to the right between this building and the brick building right next door is a stairway that goes up to my front door. And my office space runs along the second floor, all along the white building of the Grasshopper Shop. And next to that is, on the other end of the building is Mary Vassal's. She owns the building.
Yeah, so there was a bracket similar to the one on the right there that was on the left that they said, the building owner said she could use, but Laura and I talked about it, and it's above Vassal's and it's not where our entrance is. So my only suggestion was, the flat wall sign would go where it is. And then I just suggested to bring that sign over to draw people to her stairwell, because that's the only way they can get upstairs into her building. And it's just a typical bracket sign. And I think we ended up at 18.5. The perspective of the drawing makes it look a little more like a rectangle, but it's basically an 18.5 square sign. And I think I adjusted that picture down, so I thought we sent another one, but I think I've got one that says 45 by 14, and because I think the scale on that was wrong. So we've got 14 inches by 45 inches wide, I think. So, but anyway, I typically will draw it, put it where I think it looks the right size on the building. And then so that represents the scale of it. So, and there will be carved letters. We were thinking about doing the logo, the A and the shadow to the A in a raised letter. And, but it'll be typically in a combination of carved and raised letters with a frame around it for both of them.
Thank you very much. Then I'll ask the commissioners for comments. Dennis.
I don't know, for some reason that sign really stands out on that building in sort of black and white, but is there a sign to the other side?
No.
More of the building?
No, there's nothing there.
But there's not been anything where this sign is going. This is totally new, something there, right?
Just the Grasshopper sign has always been there to the left of it. And over the years, there was a bracket to the left, and there have been signs. I don't think there's been a sign on the right side, but there's another bracket that's existing, that's at that side, at that height, same height. And this, I don't know what the sign was. I know there was a few art design places up top there. So I remember we did a sign a long time ago, but there's a bracket that's so a sign has been approved at that height, and I just moved the bracket all the way over to the right, just because I thought
there are two signs there, Bill. Is it are you talking about the blade sign or the wall sign?
Yeah, I'm just talking about the blade sign. There was a Grasshopper sign there, and there's another bracket that's still hanging, and I just can't remember what was up there. So there's been a blade sign on both sides, and then typically I suggest if somebody's across the street or in a car and they're up looking at the building, you can't see, the blade. There's a reason for a flat wall sign and a blade sign, because you only see the 3/4 inch edge of the blade sign. And that's why people use flat. That's why people do both. They don't all do both, but that's why most places.
Right. But to clarify, there's never been a wall mounted sign there.
I don't know. I could look back, because I remember there was a design there. I believe there's been up there, but I don't have, when I was looking at it, there was nothing up there when I went on the Google thing there. So she's not replacing somebody that had a flat wall sign.
Okay. That's all I have to say at this point, I guess.
Thank you very much, Dennis. Abigail.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Google images on my phone. Yeah, I don't have any objection to the blade sign. I agree with Dennis that there's something slightly out of place about the flat wall sign, and it's a little hard to put my finger on it. I think part of it is that, you do have these two dormers on the building, and then there's kind of 3 sign bays. There's the small Vassal sign all the way to the other end, and the middle bay doesn't have a sign. And so perhaps it's that this is larger in scale than the Vassal Jewelers sign is what makes it feel unbalanced.
Mm-hmm.
I think the reduced size, the 14 by 44 is more appropriate. But I am struggling a little bit because I do think may just be that it's a change from what we're used to there.
And that second bay, is that the whole upper floor is my space, so there wouldn't
be another
necessarily-
business sign there. Yeah. So that, I mean, that's the thing, is it kind of, you've got kind of three lower businesses. You've got, one blade sign, one flat wall sign. The watch shop doesn't have any signage at this point, I don't think, any exterior signage. So I think it's just a little hodgepodgey, and that's not necessarily a bad thing for some of these older buildings in Concord, but
I can assure you the for rent signs are out of the windows.
yeah. No, so I don't have objection to the blade sign. Yeah, it's just hard for me to tell with the flat sign. I don't think the materials are inappropriate. I don't think the colors are inappropriate. They're appropriate to the logo. I think, yeah. I think the smaller scale might solve the issue.
Okay.
Thank you, Abigail. Henry.
I haven't studied this from every perspective while standing in the street, and that was my oversight. I am also concerned, not at all by the blade sign. I wouldn't even reject if that got a bit larger. The wall sign, I'm wondering, well, there are two items. One is that the guidelines for the historic district say that signage should not incorporate logos. And I don't know how that was ever built into the guidelines, because I don't think that you can be part of the 21st century without logos. But what I do wonder on this wall sign is whether, if you remove the blue, Mr. Crosby, if you remove the blue outline,
yep,
that would still read, and it might not seem like such an applied interruption to the that portion of the facade.
Yeah, saying that, and I'm not opposed to that. And looking at it, that could be the thing that's kind of sticking out the most. And then, so Laura, I would actually agree to that, because we're talking. We're talking about doing kind of a nice fat sign, because we like to make it look like it might have been an old mahogany blank,
Yeah.
And it's going to pick up some subtle shadows all by itself, even if it was white all the way around the corner. And I actually think that, I don't know if that was part of the logo or what happened, but it's, I think there might have been a border around it. So we just kind of followed that theme. But I actually kind of like that suggestion. And if we did that, I almost think it wouldn't be a bad idea to be consistent with both of them, just so it feels more like a blank. But especially the flat wall, I would think it would look missing if we didn't do the suggestion to both. But Laura, does the logo have a blue pinstripe anywhere, or was that added?
No, I think it was added, and I do like the idea of taking, because I think it will look more natural. I think it
looks
better.
a little more like a wood sign, and it's less work for me to do the border. I'm just kidding. But, yeah, and that would reduce this even more of the scale of the sign, because it's now reading as a big box, and then it would go down another 15% from there, just visually. But so I would be, if that's okay with Laura, I would propose that would be, I think that would be a good idea.
I think that's a great suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you, Henry. Peter?
No, Henry stole my suggestion, so I have nothing further to add, and I think we're exactly right here.
Yeah.
So
well, both Henry and Peter stole my suggestion about the blue outline. So that's the only suggestion that I have. So are there any comments from the public? If that's the case, then I'll ask the commission for a vote.
No, I'll move that
I mean, for a motion. It's getting late.
Yes, I'll move that we approve the signage at 34 Main Street with the two conditions. One, that the blue border is removed from both the blade sign and the flat sign. And I think is the size different from what's shown on the application? on the flat sign, slightly smaller, 14 by, remind me.
I think the size is the same, but when I got it from my designer, I went back and I just remeasured the scale based on, because I think I looked up, I did the Grasshopper Shop 100 years ago, and the for rent signs, I believe, are like, I'm not, I should know. I tried to get a better scale and I came up with one that was 14 by 45. And so that one might have, that 56 one I thought was just reading at 56 and 18, but I don't think it's that big. Is it? I think I counted the clapboard. So
How about if I put 14 by 45 in the motion and you verify that for
yeah,
us?
okay, I think that'd be great.
Okay, could you restate your motion then, Peter, because I lost track?
So I'm moving that we approve the application to install new signage with the two conditions that the blue border be removed on both signs and that the flat sign be limited to 14 by 45 inches or to be verified by Billy.
A second?
Second.
Okay, Dennis,
Aye.
Abigail,
Aye.
Henry,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. So the motion passed. Congratulations.
Thank you very
so
much. Thank you.
I just want to say, I'm no Tom Kearns, but he was my next door neighbor for my, our kids' whole lives, and we coached baseball together. And that guy is just unbelievable. I mean, I know he does some amazing things, but I mean, I've never seen anybody, that was the best presentation I've ever seen at the HTC, whether you approve it or not. It's just like, he is unbelievable, so.
Thanks very much for your comments.
Yeah.
Let's
Thank you,
try
guys.
to finish the meeting and go to other business. We have the minutes from 7/7.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Billy.
Thanks, Laura.
Any issues with the minutes from July 7th? I read them. I didn't find anything wrong with them.
Nope, I had one small comment that was incorporated.
I just sent my comments into, so
So will the secretary agree that we make a motion to approve the minutes?
Yep, I make a motion that we approve the minutes for the July 7th meeting.
Second. Dennis,
Aye.
Abigail,
Aye.
Henry,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
I'm an aye. So a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
I second.
It's nice
All
to
in
see you
favor?
all. That was a long meeting.